The deeper and deeper I go, I find what it is I should know. It's just a matter of time for you reawaken your mind. Oh, come with me, come to know and find out what is true. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Come to know and find out what is truth, yes. Then you'll know what's in store just for you. No more living a lie. I can look to the sky and say, I'm reawakening minds. Happy Holy Day, Moors, and welcome to House of Reawakening Minds. Yes. As you know, House of Reawakening Minds exists to provide for exploration and practice of spirituality in an enlightened community dedicated to honoring the myriad of sacred pathways to the universal creator. We are a holistic center for spiritual grounding, free thought, self-discovery, and Moorish science, an awakening experience for all ages. Tonight, I am pleased to present our national Grand Sheik and to share the platform with him.
Oh, yeah.
Taj Tarik Bey. Let's welcome him. Clap for yourself. Listen, thank you so much for your patience. We had to get started a little bit later today, and you will probably see, you could probably look at Grand Sheik and you could tell that he is exhausted. He has been working, as you know, along with Brother Abdullah, Brother Shema, Brother Terrence, and Brother Ahmad, and Brother Terrence's brothers. They have been working diligently and feverishly, but mainly, Grand Sheik is he's a project manager, and he's the senior person without him, this stuff just wouldn't happen. So I had to pull him from House of Reawakening Minds, where he's been up since like 5 o'clock this morning, so that we could make sure that we could come to you and bring you a broadcast. We realized that how much these broadcasts mean to you. Grand Sheik realizes that. And so this is a sacrifice for him. So we appreciate your overstanding, your understanding, and your patience. Tonight, our theme, and I'm going to put it back up, is truth has no versions. It is what it is. And certainly, Grand Sheik, there's so much going on the planet right now. It's not, we can't even say in, America or on American soil or whatever you want to call it. It's global.
On the planet.
Yes. There is a lot going on right about now. And you wanted to come forth and speak on some topics of, where we are, but more importantly, how we got to where we are, and maybe even offer some suggestions about, how we can move on from here instead of backwards, how we can begin to, and you know what, when I said instead of backwards, it's interesting. When I think in terms of backwards, way back to when we were a mighty people, we had the knowledge, right? But I'm saying, and we knew it. We had the technology, and we had the energy and the just the drive to build and construct and to legislate, govern, to navigate. We could do a lot of things, but now somehow we lost that. And we were just talking about it before we went live, from a standpoint of how history has been reversed. And can I say, my little before you get started, can I say my little research that I did on the word history?
Yes, go ahead.
So many of you probably, like myself, we talk about, folks talk about, I used to, before I was enlightened, Black History Month or Women's History Month, or history and period. We talk about our history. I guess it was one day last year, how I get all these downloads. And I kept trying to make it his story, but you had to add an extra S in order to have his story. And so the voice in my head, which I've come to know is my higher self, said to me, you are breaking the word incorrectly. Leave the word his by itself and don't add an S to story, and just make it his Tory and look up the word Tory. So I proceeded to go to I think etymology online, online, and look up the word Tory. Looked up in a couple of different places, and I found out that it means robber. It meant brigand or robber. It meant British loyalist. In other words, the Tories, if you remember, when you've seen some of the old accounts, were soldiers or something. The Tories, remember?
Yes.
And so his Tory, the voice in my head said, stop trying to make it his story and tell it like it is. It is his Tory. And if his Tory is based on lies and thievery,
yes,
do you, Naila, really have a history?
Yeah.
Do your people really have a history? We have an origin.
Yeah.
We have a real presence, but we don't have, I no longer claim a history, because now that I know, with etymology, studying under Brother Abdullah makes you want to, check out things. And when it comes to his Tory, I have no history. So I just wanted to share that. But you have some thoughts about what's going on and how we got here, and take it away, Grant.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to bring to people's attention is as we were talking actually the other night, how many versions of the Septuagint, which becomes the Bible, how many versions there are, and that have been presented to the people as grounded and as original text. Now, I recognize that many of the divisions and confusion that people display, in society in general, and particularly among our own people, is because they use the Bible as a guide due to the fact that that comes from, Hikupta, Berber, African culture and history, which is the origin of the book. Though it has been modified and neutered in some areas by the hybrid Europeans as they took over, the libraries, etc., and altered the books out of their original culture and out of their original formats, etc. And one of the things that I think most people should start recognizing, how do we identify, or how do we address the confusions and the divisions that people have among themselves in general, in the name of their religious beliefs, etc. And one of the things that I wanted to present is the fact that many of the people do not look at the dogma systems that have been structured from the Bible and presented to the people, absent of the original culture that has created a lot of the confusion. And a lot of our people reject it because they think it's not ours. And a lot of people accept it because they think they take it from the perspective as it's been presented. This is the book of Jesus type, perspective, etc. One of the things, the other thing that I wanted to mention in relationship to it is many people hear the phrase more science.
Right.
Whether you're coming from any organized group, or from the Moorish Science Temple of America, or from the Moorish Holy Temple of Science, which some of them still exist, like in Newark, New Jersey, etc. And a couple of areas in the country, still old Canaanite temple. Now, one of the things I want to mention too, if you present to most of our people who approach what they think and what they've been told is Egyptian culture and science and the foundation of religion, they also know that Egypt, or what they have been calling Egypt, is the capital dominion of the Moorish Empire.
Okay.
And so in order to know Moorish culture or Moorish history, you must know Hikupta history. And we're using the term, casually as they use history, or we say the chronology. Now, one of the most proper attributes for what you call Egypt is actually Hikupta.
Okay.
And the people of Egypt, or what you would call Egypt, you call them Kuti. So greetings to all the Asiatics, North America, Kuti. And not unlike some other misgivings by the people really not knowing some of the original formats and some of the original forms, linguistic form, and the culture, the hybrid Europeans have successfully separated the consciousness of the people from Egypt, but presented it back to them in a data format.
Okay.
Now, and this is back to, as we've discussed many times, you'll see people in their good intended mind guide themselves by the Bible and don't know what the Bible is.
What is the Bible?
The Bible actually is simply means book in general. That's casually, because actually many of our papyri or book formats were done in biblios, and it was actually like a province.
Oh, biblios is was a location.
Yes. Location.
Okay, actually.
And it was, many books were printed there. And much papyrus that we made paper was there, not just there, but also in Central America, what we call Central Mexum. And so the term or was addressed to the Book of the Sun, which is really a cosmological book of Berber culture. Berber is a linguistic group that deals with, your Asiatic African linguistic formats from ancient Nubia, Sudan, Eritrea, etc., Abyssinia, etc. And many of the people call it now, like say Ethiopia, like that, which is really more of a super devere term than people in a sense.
What is a super devere?
Super devere is really surveying or dividing of land, like surveying.
Somewhat like when was it
dividing of the land between Ham and Cush?
Okay.
Type. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All
right. Now, so you would deal with, Mesopotamia, Eritrea, Nubia, Sudan. Then you must, when you're looking at Asiatic African culture, we have to recognize that the political jurisdictional lines that have been presented to the people in contemporary times actually did not exist in that format as they're taught. So when you're looking at ancient Hikupta Empire, you'll be looking at most of the whole of South Asia, which we call Africa, and including, Mexico, and including the whole of Central America and North America, and the America as it is. Now, so even with the misinformation, the misrepresented data as presented to the people, they look at America as two continents when America is really one continent.
Which has what has been delineated North, Central, and South, but it's one continent.
It's really one continent. And we often, because we make territorial jurisdictional descriptions, and people have been pretty much taught, by the hybrid Europeans that these are separate continents, etc. And of course, when they dug the canal, the Panama Canal, that took that peninsula, and separated. Isthmus, actually.
Okay.
And but the continent is actually one. And so when you're looking at really he cooked a history or chronology, you would not separate, the West from the East, because the East and the West were actually one. And so you look at the Horn of Africa as you see it today, and that was right in the Gulf of Mexico. And this is why your soils of like the land of flowers,
which is
Florida.
That was Florida.
Yeah. And the modern territories of Morocco, Sierra Leone, etc., Tunis, etc., is exactly the same, because they were connected. Yes, it was just a river.
Okay. Right.
And so when you're looking at the Red River here, which we also call Mississippi, you're looking at an offshoot of the Nile coming off the Red Sea. So our concepts about ourselves are pretty much have been molded by the way African history has been presented. And so there's a mental separation geographically and definitely culturally, So as an example, for those who hear the phrase more science, like I always recommend to remove confusion with many of our people. If you really want to get into Moorish culture and the foundation of religion, one of the best short pieces of literature that you can give them to begin to liberate them is the Kybalion. Let me put it so you can see this.
Yeah, we can see that.
Kybalion. And this would be what is known as the Hermetic Law or Hermetic Principles.
The 7 Hermetic Principles.
And of course, there's 7 in harmony with Moorish culture. And that is the foundation of all the world's religions. Absent of the fluff, absent of the dogmata, absent of the anthropomorphic methodologies, which the ancient ones also used for teaching children. So like say for instance, like when you read the Bible and it says, when I was a child,
I spoke as a child, understood as a child.
Yes, I did the things that children do, etc.
But when I became
a man,
I put away
my childish things, etc. Right. The Kybalion would be the book for adults, for the mature.
Okay.
Absent of belief. Now, the people have been trained, unfortunately, due to not knowing that the priesthood is dirty.
Okay.
This common term that is presented to the people called beliefs. They're except for scholars, as an example, and people who are members of secret societies, that pretty much have been seizing advantage of the masses and stealing the widow's pennies, etc. They are well aware that the foundation of all the world's religions is Hermetic law. Now, for those who are not familiar, when you say Hermes Trismegistus, you also say Thoth.
Okay.
Thoth.
Right.
You also say Tahuti. It's all the same. Now, because the people don't know that, they would be presented, say, with Tahuti or Dawiti, all mean same thing. Now, the scholars know they all are Hermes. The people who are under the priesthood control look at these as different entities or different gods because it's presented to them that way.
Were they given different names because of different incarnations of the same deity, or was it because of different interaction with different peoples who gave them, like say they were here, then he went there, and so the people here called him Hermes, and the people here called him Thoth, or was it?
Yes, you can say that, but for the most part, it has more to do with deliberated transliterations by scholars and priests without telling the people origin for the intended purpose of controlling them
and confusing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, serious confusion.
You know, now, as a matter of fact, let's just talk about fundamental principles. You know, like the fundamental rules of. For those of you in your own spare time, look up the Kybalion, and then study for yourself the 7 divine principles, and that is the foundation of Moorish science. Are we clear?
All right.
Now, it would include, you know, on a more expanded basis, measuring and looking at things from what you would call a spiritual geometric format.
Mm-hmm.
Your all of your geometric shapes and geometric forms like hex alpha, as pentagram, etc., that people refer to as an example, Shield of Suleiman, and others would refer to it as the Jewish star, etc. All of this stuff is ours. And keep in mind, Jew is a contemporary word, absolutely contemporary, has no ancient origin in the sense that people know it.
Mm-hmm.
It traces back to Saba. That's a way that the priesthood has also used to bury Canaanite Moabite culture. And so even when you're looking at Islam as an example, Islam is also Saba. All of that traces back to what is called the Sufi, which means just like the Sufi philosophies,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Gnostic philosophies, which is the Hermetic philosophies. You see?
So the Gnosticism is
Foundational.
Is foundational, but the credit is given to, like, say, over in what they say Qumran and those areas where they say the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and things like that. So the credit is given for that, but its foundation goes back.
It goes beyond that.
Beyond that is what you're saying.
Far beyond that. And it's the foundation of all the maxims and axioms, philosophies, and principles, etc. Now, the interesting thing is, and you, of course, you discover this probably in your travels, in your studies, because you have degrees in theology. And as you look at some of the things that you even learn, that you look at one way when it's presented to you, and as you do research and study it, you get a totally different view. But then you begin to recognize that there are certain political agendas that are kind of like openly on one level, and then subtly presented that you don't go this way, or you don't teach the depth of the fundamental culture to the people. You would give them more of the anthropomorphic. Now, the anthropomorphic, by example, would be like when we talk about Santa Claus's sleigh as an example, and to the children, people who don't know Berber or cryptic culture, reject that and say that, oh, that's the white man stuff. No, that's our stuff. But it's really for children to talk about the Big Dipper or the Seven Sisters. Now that's a fact.
Okay.
And so that's the sleigh. And then Rudolph's red nose is the lead star, that bright star. But they never tell the people that. And so people, when they start finding out that these days of cosmo celebration or acknowledgement are practiced in what you call ritual holidays, etc., they reject it, when actually, no, that's anthropomorphic, not to be rejected, to be comprehended and understood in perspective.
Point I want to make, when you mentioned about before you get away from Santa Claus and sleighs, I recently learned that female reindeer have antlers, apparently, and the males lose them. And that when we see the depiction, even of that anthropomorphic depiction, you see, or Rudolph and all the reindeer are basically depicted as males. And if it had horn, if it was real, if it were real, to me is another cover up of the divine feminine, of the place of the woman in, you know, in creation, and in maintaining the I want to say the order, if you will, of how, you know, things flow. I mean, yes, there's been a suppression, but it doesn't mean of the knowledge, but it's there, has to be, because it's foundational.
Yes. And see, because the nature of truth is this: woman is the supreme divine gate of creation. Now that's the fact, right? Now that's founded in the basis of all your Asiatic African cultures. All Asiatic African cultures are essentially matriarchies. Now, not to be taken with the concept of separation of the male and the female in the concept that is presented under Constantinian orders that have been perpetrated under the guise of Christianity. And that's the other thing. And it's not to condemn people, it's just to tell what the truth is. So the masses generally who are told about Christianity are not told about Christ, or the activation of the Kundalini. Now, the activation of the Kundalini is also referred to as the snake. You know, and so the priesthood tell the people, or the serpent, that the activation of the serpent is actually the devil, when actually they know it's actually the opposite.
It's like that. It's that illume, or that light, if you will, that spark of deity sort of coming forth.
It is in the Septuaginta in the Bible, and in the rituals of ancient Gupta, and that's even superseded, even when you're dealing with ancient Lemuria, and, you know, etc., and Mu, superseding what we call Egypt, superseding, and you go into ancient Nubia, etc. So all of your, what you would call in your modern terms, you know, the Kupti rulers of the high house. And so the high house is Pharaoh. Pharaoh means the high house.
And were many of the pharaohs female?
Of course. You know,
but that's not what we see.
That is totally first. That is totally first. Now, again, so when you're looking at Kupti, the Kupti, so we're talking about us, the people, Kupti. You're looking at the fundamental harmonic relationship that we have with nature and the cosmos. And so when you're looking at the cosmos, you're looking at the harmonies of the creation and the building of the bodies. And so just as you see in the heavens or in the sky, you will see the waning moon, full moon, gibbon moon, etc.,
waxing moon,
waxing, etc. All of these are fundamentally Moorish culture. And then you would see Venus in the eastern sky.
So that's your Eastern Star.
That's what Eastern Star is. So Eastern Star is woman. It's, you know, so that is symbolic. And so you have the crescent and the star, which also would signify in divine nature of things, the womb and the egg.
Okay.
Mother and son.
My son.
My son. That's where my son masonry
comes from. Right.
Mother and son. Now, from the perspective as when you go into Gupta culture or Gupta, or for those who don't know the real culture, they'll say Egypt. So you're used to hearing Egypt, so we'll allow that. It's Gupta now, and that's where you get Ptah from. That's also where you get Peter from. All right, and so as when you're dealing with Karus, or the activation, back to the activation of the oils that stimulate the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. And the pineal gland is symbolized also by the eye. All right, so when you see the single eye of Horus, etc. On another level, it not only deals with full sight or your seven senses as one, making one sense, or the all, or the eye, or Horus, or the sun, etc. It also signifies the mastery of mind.
And then Matthew
Yes.
6:22 speaks of that, but it's taken different from a dogmatic perspective when it says, therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light.
Yes.
Right? So that's the same, but the principle isn't given,
Now, what you're identifying, you're actually speaking the Hikupta culture. You see?
Mm-hmm.
However, you will see the hybrid Europeans in these recent times, as people are waking up, will paint that as a negative,
mm-hmm.
and will tell our people that's the devil, so that we would hate our culture and reject enlightenment, thinking that we're actually serving the divine when actually we're rejecting the divine.
Would be also the depiction of the so-called Garden of Eden account of Eve's encounter with the serpent, because knowledge was basically said, look, you're gonna eat of this tree, and you're gonna know the difference, between good and evil,
and the secrets of life and death.
Right. So why was that such a negative? Well, you know that even to this day, it seems to be what's enforced
now,
keeping that from the people.
Now, exactly.
Truth, which we're talking about truth.
Yes, now we're talking about truth. Now let's talk about how we got to where we, keep this in mind. How did we get to where we are right now, right? Does the conditions of our people, socially, economically, politically, and spiritually, harmonize with greatness or goodness or progress, or is it opposite of that? It's hard for people sometimes to be honest, because we like to view ourselves as special, and that our spirituality is deeper than others' spirituality. But let's be honest with ourselves. It was just raining a little while ago. And you know how you can, if you pull up your blind when it's really raining and it's storming and the wind's blowing, and you're looking through the glass and everything is like a muddled sound, and the storm's out there, but you're behind the glass and you're not getting wet, and there's a little bit of a sense of protection. Not that that's hostile, but right. And it is not unlike our people looking at Hikupta culture from another side of the glass and thinking that they know what it is, and not knowing they've been fooled. You know how in the Bible when it talks about anointing my head with oil, mm-hmm. and then you'll see them go into the different temples, etc., and even do rituals where the priest would use oil and ashes and put it on people's forehead and rub it with their middle finger, etc. Mm-hmm. And the people are familiar with those rituals, but many of the people don't know what that ritual is really about. It's just a ritual, but what it symbolizes is that the oil coming up the two cords, or the cords that come from the groin area, mm-hmm. up the spine to the medulla and to the pituitary gland, activating both memory, both the ascension and the kundalini. All of that, when you say Jesus ascended unto heaven, mm-hmm. that means he activated the kundalini. Now,
so people are waiting. People are waiting for a rapture.
When actually it's the development of Christ themselves.
Right.
So Christ, or what they call the Christ, is actually self.
So when we talk about truth, the rapture has been disguised, or the rapture, ascension has been disguised as a rapture. And so that when the rapture, the deceptive rapture comes, it might be a capture. It will be a capture because you've already been conditioned to be taken up and taken away by, And
the real deal is that we collectively, the human
species,
basically, have been under attack by the priesthoods, not under the guidance of the priesthood. But that's one of what they like to call one of their great Masonic secrets, and they pretend to love the prophets. They love Esau, they love Jesus, and all they murder. They are the murderers. Now we know that that's anthropomorphic, but on another level, philosophical, it is the assassination of justice.
Right. So Jesus
means justice. All right. So the deal of it, and it also means the change of season. And so where you have the winter season coming in, and then you have the winter solstice coming in, and the sun stands still for 3 days from the 22nd to the 25th, that's where Jesus is dead in the tomb. So the sun is actually at its low point, and it's really out of sight. Then after 3 days, it starts to ascend again, and then you start coming back into the cycles of the seasons.
Right.
And then, of course, Easter, the stars in the east, then you see the crescent star in the eastern sky, and you see Venus right near her, and that's where you get the crescent and the star. It has nothing to do with belief. It has to do with the operations of heaven. And
there's scripture that says that you should, look to the heavens, and basically
all wise men look to the stars.
To the stars, right?
Because that is the culture.
Right.
Now, the point again, continuing in the vein of how we got to where we are, is that the priesthood have told the people that astrology and looking at the stars is the devil, and that 5-pointed star is the devil, and that 6-pointed star is the devil, and Baphomet is the devil. All of that is symbolic of the activation of Kundalini.
Doesn't mean though that these groups haven't taken them and like I said, deceptively began to use them for their own nefarious purposes.
Let's say this. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Let's deal with the fact of divine law and divine principle. Everything that has a front has a back. You got positive and negative force. You got gender, principle of gender. You got reciprocity,
cause
and effect, etc.
Mentalism,
and so you
vibration.
Have, just like we say, shaitan is not so much a being, but simply means the opposer or the opposite or the oppressor.
And without you will actually not be able to apprehend the light without the darkness. You would have to be, there needs to be a balance.
There's the balance.
Right, the polarity and the balance. There needs to be, because, when they talk about good and evil.
And there you go, the hermetic principles of morals and ethics of teaching the operations of nature so that you can separate the wheat from the chaff, so you can make distinction, because that's really what it is. One of the things that the priesthood have done for their own selfish cause and benefit is kept the Berber Hikupta teachings and instructions in the anthropomorphic form, and even adjusted it or even modified it as the hybrid Albions have taken it on and claimed it as their own when it's actually Berber culture.
Wow.
And in doing so, the original, except for the priesthood, those who belong to secret societies, is lost. So as an example, the advantage that the priests have, and we'll go with this. Say if someone's a grand sheik or grand sheikess or griot, Shakun, Knights Templar in your higher degrees, Eastern Star in your higher degrees, Master Mason in your higher degrees, you know, past 18 degrees as an example. Though they can acquire the knowledge in lesser degrees too. Illuminati, people, Skull and Bones, Kyklos, Ku Klux Klan, White Camellia, all these different societies. Contrary to the people in general who belong to these different groups, have no idea that all of those people in positions of power have books like this. Meaning that in a private conversation, a grand dragon of the Ku Klux Klan would not dispute with me with this, because he got it too. How they use it, how they use the knowledge has been the problem that we have. Meaning that, let me show you, and I know you've experienced this yourself. You know how, like, when people in the course of their life, in the course of their living, make discoveries of things that they thought they knew, or things that were presented to them one way, and they do a little bit more research and find out it isn't the way they told you. They didn't quite deny it, but they conveniently left certain information out so that they maintain what you would call, from their view, power over you or influence over you, where you're the subordinate. You're the subordinate.
Right. Waiting with your mouth open, particularly in the church as we know it. You know, there you have the congregation waiting to be fed. Once again, not learning how to feed or you know, produce what they need, or to research, like you said, what they need for themselves, but waiting with open mouths, you know, and closed minds, just to become believers more, to just, you know, throw it in, and I'll just, you know, assimilate it, you know, through osmosis, because I sit here every week, and not to become critical thinkers. So yes, I know exactly what you're saying. But unlike most pastors, when I was a pastor, one of my strong points, and I think why the congregation, you know, kind of revered me when they did, before they thought I was really out to lunch. But when they did revere me, it was because I didn't hold back. Whatever I got, I gave them. I didn't sit there and go, hey, I got an awesome revelation. Oh, but I got to pinch off a piece and give them like a little pinch, because if I give them all of it, then they'll know what I know. No, I wanted them to know. I wanted them to come back to me with a big spread and say, hey, Apostle Gilligan,
so we could grow.
I got something for you. But people, and by and large, particularly, and I know this isn't just about religion, or, you know, but by and large, the people are spoon-fed, and they're given just little bits, and ministers and pastors and apostles and bishops and preachers just kind of gloat in anything they get that they think is deep. And then, you know, if they get something like, you know, that Bible dictionary. I mean, this, let me just.
I was looking at mine this morning.
Let me just grab this. I don't want anything to fall. But anyway, if they get, you know, something like, when I discovered the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, for instance, I was already in my awakening stage. I didn't have this when I was pastoring. I was using the Bible, and I was going by the rules, kind of, sort of, but I colored outside the lines even then, because I just had an imagination. But when I got hold of this Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, I realized some of the preachers that we think are so deep were probably, because it almost could pass for a Bible, especially if you put it in a Bible case. Because when we kept saying, this could pass for a Bible, and you get some deep stuff in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. And so people would, you know, stand up as if they had this major, you know, encounter with the, you know, with God Almighty, and God downloaded this. No, you took it you were deep to the extent that they use it, to the extent that they don't look like they're totally out to lunch and going on the fringe of being like I am. But they drop enough of the nuggets that come out of something like this and just tease the people, which makes them think, well, you know, I got the greatest.
But they keep them in a child state.
Absolutely.
In a beggar sheeple
right
type position.
Right.
So that they can be the shepherd type
Right.
thing.
Right.
You know, of course they get paid for it.
Right.
Roman tax called tithe, and say that Jesus said it, because that's what tithe means, Roman tax.
Right. 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 Right.
You know, and now one of the things, and this is too, Dr. Nayela.
Well, can I read something here? You were talking about Hermes.
Yeah.
So in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary,
yeah,
it gives it gives, you know.
Yeah, share with us, and
okay.
then you know, because you're good at looking between and looking at the overall. So just share with us.
So it says Mercury, swift messenger of the gods, guide of the soul, interpreter, a cairn, monument, and a signpost. It says a Christian friend of Paul's at Rome, to whom Paul sent salutation in his epistle. Then the meta, here's the meta meaning. The same as Hermes, the ability of the spiritually awakened intellect in man to interpret the Christ truth.
There you go.
Hermes, the Greek Mercury, was the Mercurius of the Romans and was believed by them to be the messenger of the gods, adroit of action and ready of speech. He was also supposed to be the attendant of Jupiter when he appeared on earth. Thus, we can see why the inhabitants of Lystra, when they, in their limited understanding, believed that the gods had visited them in the likeness of men, discovered Hermes in Paul because he was the chief speaker and accompanied Barnabas, who they thought was Jupiter.
All right, now look at this.
This is in a metaphysical.
Jupiter. Hold on. I'm going to look at this. I'll show you how the Berber culture is buried.
Okay.
But not.
Okay.
But not. So, what is it that the scholars know about Mercury? It's the planet Mercury.
Okay.
And then they were shown as anthropomorphically as one like little top hat
and
or cane, with wings on his feet.
And wings on his hat.
Yeah, it means he's traveling or flying. Now, on his feet.
Right.
Now, for those of you who familiar with the word or the attribute Tahuti, right? Well, Tahuti is Dawuti, which is the proper name for the planet Mercury. The planet Mercury, Dawuti, is where you get the word deity. Now, and when they say there's only one deity, they're saying there's one Mercury,
which is true.
Now, because, and this is back to people really not knowing Midgard culture, ancient Hykupta culture. The priesthood has imprisoned humanity to lock them at Midgard, which is the name of this particular earth, Gaia, Midgard, right? And so their concept is that we had no communications outside
of the priesthood
of this, which is a falsehood. We've always had communication with off-world beings.
But it is in the Bible, but they just don't describe it as that. You know, when you have
it was
Jacob,
for the narrative.
Yeah,
it was for the game.
Ezekiel's wheel, for
course,
instance. Moses going up on Mount Sinai and having this encounter, probably, different ones that, what's his name, wrestling with an angel supposedly and getting his socket taken out, pulled out. Those are you go back with open, awakened eyes.
Now, anthropomorphically, you're dealing with both activations of the Christ, or the Christ, what people call the Christ, of the evolutionary development of humans in their ascended energy, becoming what you would call more connected to the divine, whereas their sight increases and everything begins. Let's look at this: taste, touch, sight, hearing, smell, insight, and intuition.
Yeah.
You combine all of them are forms of seeing.
Okay.
And when you've mastered, or you starting to ascend, or your head you're anointing your pineal gland with oil. That means the kundalini or the kundalini is ascending your spine, and this is where you get that caduceus,
like on the medical staff,
the medicine, the staff or the medicine, etc. And that is the knowledge of the plant life and the herb, because some used to use different plants, just like you see in Deuteronomy, where it tells you the herb-bearing plants or trees shall be meat for you.
Mm-hmm.
Where the priesthood have deceived the people, making them think that the morgue is meat, when actually it's fruits and nuts and fruit and nut-bearing trees that is really the meat. And they have actually flipped it and have been making people sick so they can control them and also cast spells on them. You know, and they keep some mystical devils doing this to them, and it's actually the priesthood. You know, and this is back to how do we get to where we are today, etc. So when you're looking at the Bible, you're also dealing with an anthropomorphic approach to the activations of the spiritual glandular system of the body. So Jesus, which is really Ios, which is really the sun, which is really also light, or the activation of the different glandular systems, is the ascension into heaven. And that you are the Christ or the Christ. Now, and so when people have been told that they're Christians and they don't know this, the priesthood has deceived them. Now, another priest knows it already, but the people don't suspect it because they think they know what's going on. Now, at that point, once the priesthood controls the narrative in the anthropomorphic format, he can keep them as little children and then rape them. And he doesn't pray for them, he prays upon them. And that's P-R-E-Y, distinguished from P-R-A-Y. Now, the other problem that we have is that the Constantinian order of the popes, the hybrid popes of Rome, this is after the last Moorish pope was kidnapped by Napoleon Bonaparte. That's when the hybrids took over the Vatican, which is really African in the priesthood. This is why you'll see them have that king's head in the shield or in the heraldry shield of Rome. And people say, what's that Moor doing in the Pope's shield? Because it's symbolizing the last of the Canaanite Moabites who ruled, you see?
Wow.
And they took over, and they've been, and this is what people must really comprehend and understand. The distinction of the operations of the church, and understand that the church actually means, you know, like when you see it symbolically in ancient Hykupta, where you see Nut over the earth,
right,
and you see her belly,
right.
That her belly is the church. That ark,
right,
of the pregnancy of creation, that is the great circle. That is church. And church, which is Germanic, which is really not hybrid linguistics, is actually come from Central Africa and from Sanskrita. It does. People say Sanskrit. It's Sanskrita.
Wow.
Those languages are African languages too, and these people really don't know it because they're not told that. They make the people think that they originated with the hybrids. No, they originated with you. Now, and the deal of it is that when you take it out of its anthropomorphic form, it's not to be rejected, it's to be told to the people what it actually is so they can grow up and actually master themselves. But the priesthood, for selfish cause, has kept the adult, or what you would call the mature, the otherwise would be physically mature, etc., in a child state in order to prey upon them.
Minorities.
Yes, and this is where symbolic justice comes, or Jesus comes to liberate the people from the priesthood who have been stealing the widow's pennies and who have been knowing the truth themselves and hinder the little ones from knowing the truth, i.e., keeping them in the anthropomorphic format of child. And that's where your belief systems come in that have nothing to do with truth. They may be related, but they're a reflection of the truth and not the truth itself.
So justice says, or Jesus says, suffer the little, suffer or allow the little children to come unto me and forbid them not, for such is the kingdom. Right? That's what that means. Don't forbid the people from getting the true knowledge that they are rightfully, they're due that.
Now, of course,
birthright.
That's exactly what it is.
They have a birth. You're keeping people from their birthright, from their natural inheritance, and so forth.
And hiding instead of really uplifting the people with Jesus or justice.
Right.
They're actually, saying, Lord, 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 but their hearts are far removed. They really hate him. But they dress in beautiful garb, and the people think they're coming to save the people from the depths of ignorance and everything, when actually they're parasites.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you'll see some of the priesthood will proudly say they stand behind a pulpit. But that removes some of the karmic debt, because they understand that divine law, Hermetic law, does not recognize personal station. It's called cause and effect.
Right.
It's called reap what you sow.
Right.
So reap what you sow is cause. Yes. So karma is not just what is done, it is also what is not done.
Okay.
So in principle of Hermetic law or divine law, it is a balance of the life structure, the geometry of life itself, the code of life itself, to balance life. So people can choose to use things to the negative, but they cannot upset the forces of life. That's how the earth, like for instance, men can choose to misuse knowledge and do all kind of evil things, but they will come and they will go, but the earth abides forever. In other words, the divine law protects life form itself from the machinations of dark minds. And this is the other deal that people need to understand. The hybrid European this is an uncomfortable reality that most people are not aware of, because they are recessive. So there's also the nature of when they go into ancient Babylonian and Chaldean culture, and so when you're looking at ancient Eritrea, Chaldea, right, Babylonia, Nubia, the people in the terms as they've been taught of the Asiatic African culture in modern contemporary times, they're looking at these as different jurisdictions. In African culture, they're all the same people.
Right. Had a brother from Uganda tell me that yesterday.
Yeah.
Tell me that. He said that's something over here. Matter of fact, can I click? Let me put this up for those who may not have seen this. It's going to show part of it. I can't. It's not a full banner, but it supports, I guess, what you're talking about. I made this today, and look at that. I don't know if you can see the whole thing, but it says they want you to believe or whatever. So
what they don't want you to believe.
No, that's not what it says.
Right.
I can't even read it. But
what they want you to believe.
Yeah. They want you to.
There are only two races.
Yeah, right.
Human and hybrid.
No.
Your assignment is to figure out.
Basically, it says regardless of what they want you to believe, there are only, you can't see the whole thing.
Yeah.
There are only two races, human and hybrid. Your assignment is to figure out which one you are.
Exactly.
So they want you to believe, that this, because this is a lead into, because people are asking about what's going on today. They want to say that this is racism. They want to say that the killing in Minneapolis was racially motivated, and as a result of that, we are all of a sudden now we could not unify. Listen, we could not unify around all of the myriad of things that have been unifiable, should have brought us together in the past. But we're unifying around this one, and when I say not all of us, but
the ritual sacrifice.
Right. This is the thing that is bringing everyone to a place of like I call it I got that poem like lemmings.
It's chaos.
The chaos is ensuing because it's being.
So it's not a positive unity.
No, it's not.
It is a chaotic Not only that, it is promoted deliberately by mind control in order for the hybrid Europeans to hijack them,
right,
create destruction,
and with
and
distraction.
then legislate color of law to further entertain and exercise their eugenics and genocide program of kill the Moor,
Right.
which is what's been going on. Now, many people aren't aware, but if you did a little research, there was a couple more people that were ritually murdered, including a sister, right after that. But they didn't.
Well, before that.
Yeah, before that and after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But we're seeing, what I'm saying is, what I'm seeing, and it's funny, I made a post yesterday that I was sitting in the waiting room and I was about to gag, and so few people got upset because they thought that I was in a hospital waiting room, sick. No, I was in the waiting room of the car dealership, and I had no choice because I don't look at mainstream media. I detest mainstream media. So on its own merits for what it's become. So I don't look at it, but I had no choice because I was sitting in the waiting room and that's what was playing. And what I was seeing was the memorial service in Minneapolis, the first of one of four memorials for George Floyd. And the mix, the politics, and just the stroking of the, oh yes, we're so sorry, we treated the black people wrong, and we all need to kumbaya and create. We need to create scholarships. All the colleges need to have George Floyd scholarships, and we're gonna have more sit downs with you guys, and different so-called substitute bays and so forth for saying stuff like this. And I'm like, this, I said, well, it didn't happen with Eric Garner, didn't happen with Sandra Bland and Tamir Rice, and going back, let's go far back. It didn't happen with Medgar Eggers, all the ones that were really fighting for or Malcolm. So now all of a sudden, because there's a hidden agenda, and what I believe what we're not seeing is, and we're talking about this, we're not seeing the truth. We've not been given the truth. We're not, the story is very, very muddy and conflicting.
Yes.
The
relationship
of those people is highly questionable.
Yeah.
And I kind of tried to wonder, well, okay, if it was a conspiracy per se, how do you get all those people, like family members and so forth, to go along with it? But wouldn't be the first time, or you just trick them too, and you just assume a new place, because what your job is to create the chaos, and if you say, okay, facilitate, if it means that I have to, it looks like I've been murdered, and then then I have to do that and start all over somewhere, just like Jeffrey. Jeffrey told on everybody, and then they put him in the prison. They said, don't worry, Jeffrey, we're gonna kill you, but not for real, and then we're gonna take you out and you get a new face. You get to we'll just give you a new identity, and we'll put you under our protection.
But ultimately, it's to claim the people,
right?
Their estate.
The people are the pawns.
Yes.
The people are the pawns. From a standpoint of, it's, first of all, big lie, talking about truth, is that we're minorities. And when you think about minority, you think about less than or in number. Like when you have the minority whip and the majority. So a person can be in charge if they're the majority.
Yeah.
So if you're calling us the minority, if you're saying that melanated people in not only this country, but globally are the minority, which is a major lie, just so that we believed it.
And it must always, and this is the deal, all of those catchphrases, placative and condescending statements, just like all these condescending statements that they're making now in the names of the memorial, is to distract the people from the real issue that the people really should be discussing. And that is this: treaty enforcement via the Constitution for the United States, and decolonization, not reparations. Reparations is another ploy.
Right.
All right. Decolonization is what should be going on among the people who have been abused over and over again. Not reparations, not we're going to get along, we're going to give you some more cookies, or we're not going to take as many cookies as we used to, or we're not going to kill as many of you as we usually do for hundreds of years.
Right.
We're going to be nice to you in your own house, on your own land that we lied to you, said it wasn't yours, and that we bought you from someplace else. So the deal of it is, the true issue is treaty enforcement, constitution enforcement, and decolonization. All the other conversations about racism and prejudice are diversions, always have been diversions, and is absolute bullshit. Now, both the Asiatics and the Europeans that get you caught up in the race argument and let us all get along are placating you while you get raped, while they get more established to kill more of your children off, and to shoot their arms with mercury and other nanoparticles to create the sicknesses that we've been having for these last 50 years that we never had before. They're not here. They're not here to heal you. They're not here to get along with you. They're here to kill you off and to claim your estate.
Absolutely.
As an example, truth is what it is, and it's uncomfortable. And I know it's uncomfortable, but you know how we do here. We talk about things that other people skip around.
Right.
We're blunt.
Right.
We're not to hurt anyone. It's just that you can't fix anything if you don't look at the actual engineering. Just like if your car stops running, and because your car is beautiful and someone doesn't want to hurt your feelings, they'll say, "Oh, all you need is a tune-up," and you might have a cracked block.
Mm-hmm.
And this is sort of like they'll talk race, and this race and prejudice argument has always been a front, social engineering front for arguments to placate people who are under occupation, so that you don't think about that you're under occupation, right, to divert you from what's really going on.
Absolutely.
You're under unum sanctum occupation.
Unum sanctum hybrid occupation.
You got that right. People, if you really kind of look at it, because it's so really ugly, they don't really want to look at it and think that not looking at it makes it go away. And so they'll argue complexion of your skin and race, and because they don't know that race is a species.
Right.
They treat people like race is different nationalities.
Right.
When race is the species.
Right.
Nationality is the distinguished mothers or the matriarchs of the planet, and the inherited lands of the different matriarchs, because they give birth. They're the supreme gate of creation for all life, male and female, and therefore the land is always named after mother. Your vixellum, which they call your flag or your national standard, is named after your mother. And your inheritances is carried by mother. That's why it's called inheritance. Yes, inheritance.
Actually, yeah.
Because civilization in its nature is based on matriarchy. Mm-hmm. All right. So if you kind of understand African culture, or the high house, or Pharaoh, so now you would deal with monarchy. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the way they've been teaching us in their Rockefeller institutions, they have taught us to hate monarchy when actually that's you.
Absolutely. So
when you're looking at monarchy, you're looking at pharaohship. That's where it has its origin.
And you're looking at the divine
Pharaoh. Exactly. And for people who really don't know the history and the culture, because of the abuses imposed upon Asiatic African people under the Spanish Inquisition, of the hybrid Europeans claiming to be Jews and are not Jews, we have a tendency to reject Christianity, not knowing that Christianity is us. Do you understand? And it's not a religion in the concept that people have been told it is. It's actually a biological divinity term.
Okay.
It's not a belief system. It's so if you're a Christ or if you're a Christian, you're saying that I recognize myself in the divine creation, and I recognize my duty to self with the monad to activate that spark by disciplining myself to activate the oil in my groin. And this is where the great leaf symbolically of Adam really is. That covers
fig leaf, yeah.
That's what that is. That's what that symbolizes. That means conquering
the lower self.
The lower three chakras.
Right, the lower self.
See, because your chakras is the sovereignty. The sovereignty is divine. And so this is why they say sovereignty comes from God. You got to understand this. A lot of the political relationships that have evolved are not being taught to the people for what they really are and have been. They alter it to the political whims of the ruling imitators or maskers. And that's why they try to be you, and they call themselves the elite.
We talked about that.
The godlights.
Godlights.
They are not Jews. They've been claiming your estate. That's what that phrase means. And so when they're saying that they're Jews, like in John 8:44, you know, when justice places upon them their proper status, and he says, you're of your father the devil, he's a murderer from the beginning. And when he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own kind. Mm-hmm. Jesus is talking about the hybrid who's pretending to be Jews or pretending to be Sabians, which is really the Canaanites, Moabites. Now you understand the Canaanite temple, Moabite temple, Chaldean. Right. Since they're pretending to be us and trying to kill us off, that has been the agenda. So when people start arguing racism and prejudice, they're missing what I just stated, which is really the politics of the planet. That's the actual politics. It's not opinion. That's the actual politics of the planet. Unum Sanctum addresses what I just said to you. So when people looking at the Bible, they're looking at some kind of belief system when it's actually Berber culture, codified and told in storyline and in sort of like allegorical stories. A lot of it's parabolic and allegorical. It is not really beings in the way that, it's been told to the people. Right. But unless they have some knowledge of Asiatic African culture, they're caught into the literal transliterations as presented by the priesthood, which gives them a false paradigm and sets those who are teaching from that perspective in a position of power over them. And this is basically what's been going on. And it must be recognized that one of the keys that the recessive hybrids have been doing is not only doing what they call blackface. They darken their skin to pretend that they have the space suit of melanin, and then go in the land and do things, kill people off, and then claim to be us. This is really what's been going on. If the people would want to have a comprehension of the politics of the planet, of this planet Midgard, look at what the fake Jews are doing to the Palestinians at the peninsula, and you'll know what the pattern is all across the planet. And that's what happened to us here first. Wow. Yes, absolutely that. And the race argument and the prejudice argument is to keep the people from looking at that fact, not opinion, that fact, that the real and the other deal, because of the recessive nature, their thinking is recessive. This is what people need to understand. And so many of the people of Asiatic African descent get kind of confused with the hybrid Europeans and wonder why they're always trying to block out the sun. because they're attacking the Son of God. But that's real.
Right. It is God's son.
No, that is real.
Yeah.
You know, now, but yet the anthropomorphic story is them lynching Jesus. You see the point?
Mm-hmm.
And also the anthropomorphic story is also the winter solstice.
I just pulled up Galatians 4, chapter 22 says, "For it is written that Abraham had two sons, the one by a bondwoman, the other by a free woman. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but he of the free woman was by promise." Here's the kicker, verse 24, "which things are an allegory, for these are the two covenants, the one from the Mount Sinai, which gendered to bondage, which is Agar. For this, Agar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and answers to Jerusalem, which now is in bondage with her children. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all." So basically, we've been told the story about Abraham and Sarah and all this stuff, and the Hagar, the bondwoman and all that. And then they tell you in the same book,
that's allegorical,
in the New Testament, because they say the old is the new concealed, and the new is the old revealed. So in the New Testament, they say we were just using that as an example for those in freedom and those in bondage, but they didn't really exist.
Now, the other thing that people need to know about that, what you're also talking, if I say to you, when you're looking at citizenship manual that's used around the world, here at the North Gate, right? And it's called the DAR manual.
Daughters of American Revolution.
Exactly. Now, what I'm saying to you, if you read that, you're actually reading part of the Berber culture upon which that is based, because they were concubines, but the Moabitess
was free,
was matrimony. And so this is where you get the harems, the Moorish harems, that the European women, to be members of DAR, must have a record or some kind of reasonable proof that they're descendant from women of the Moorish harems. Now, this is real history, real culture here that our people aren't aware of.
Right.
So the circle, or Kaiklos, Ku Klux Klan, is essentially the sons of the concubines, because a Moabitess was not a concubine. So a Berber queen, sort of like Europa, and Nefertiti's daughter, they founded Scotland, Poland, all this stuff. These people think these are hybrid. No, they were Canaanite Moabites. So they're not, the people are not told, when they're told Egyptian, or Kupti history, that that's part of Egypt too. Now secret societies know this, because now in the contemporary world, all of this has been separated. Then they start trying to psychologically separate Egypt from South Asia as if it's separate, so they could claim it. This is that. Now, with the Daughters of the American Revolution, they taught their sons to hate their fathers. This is where you have your hybrids. And if you talk to Asiatics and Africans, outside of North America, generally, many of those modern day so-called, because it's not people need to understand that Arab is not a people.
Okay.
The word Arab is linguistically Persic and Urdu in that family group, and it simply means nobles, the noble ones.
Okay.
So generally, any of your Asiatic Africans were referred to as, your Northwest Africans were generally referred to as the nobles or Arabs.
Okay.
Today, with the corruption, they are telling the people that it is African people in this North Saudi Arabian peninsula area, blah, 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 as if that's a bloodline or pedigree. It is not. It is a word that just simply means the nobles. Now, key. The hybrid Europeans have been systematically claiming the estates of the Moors because they had no inheritance, and that has been at the foundation of a lot of the crusades against the Canaanites, Moabites that have come in history as the Punic Wars, and this is the wars with Hannibal Barca Bey and Hasdrubal Barca Bey, and they'll talk about Hannibal on Gunish, or the elephant, because elephants were one of our pets, you know, and so they'll even to this day in the military manuals, techniques of Hannibal is used to this very day. Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh yes. You know, and so when people must know that the jurisdictional lines, political jurisdictional lines that are taught today with the lands and the people, does not really exist. And if they're going into Asiatic African history, you must think provinces, kingdoms, and empires, no countries. Country is a contemporary perspective. We use those terms because of the politics of the day, but to know Moorish culture, you must always keep that in mind and make that distinction. Mm-hmm. And the political lines also. For instance, like just like if they're looking at North America law, culture, jurisprudence, right, as of day. So now you look at the Powhatan Confederation, and you look at the Anasazi Confederation, and this is pretty much the structure adopted today, operative, that they call the Democratic and the Republican Party, is really copying Anasazi, and they'll say Iqua. Iqua is Anasazi. And Powhatan, so the Powhatan would say Wuhan Sunukuk. Wuhan Sunukuk is Matuaka's father. And Matuaka is rewritten as Pocahontas. Mm-hmm. She was a potentess. She was not some woman running around going, woo, 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 hugging trees and stuff with a loincloth. No, she was a potentess. You know, and this is one of the reasons why when they John Rolfe, and they'll teach the people in history, John Smith married her, no, it was John Rolfe, and they were competing for her because the inheritance basically, or the wealth, is always passed down through the woman in African culture. Mm-hmm. And this is why they murdered her at Gravesend, England, you know, when they took her on the ship and dumped her over and said that she accidentally drowned. And then came back and started Jamestown, Virginia.
On her land.
And then they built the first settlement in a triangle of the Great Seal. And that is, for the hybrid Europeans, the first established aristocracy at the North Gate. Jamestown, Virginia. Mm. Yes. See, people need to know the history that the hybrids didn't really come into power the way they are earlier in the concept, the way they write this into history. Mm-hmm. Many of these trading shipping routes were actually Moors and amalgamated Moors. And many of the hybrid Europeans were brought here and to work off their debt because they have no estate. People really need to understand one of the real reasons why the Moors at North America, tagged as blacks and Indians, have been so abused, because we are the heirs to the world's largest estate, and they've been living off your estate. They've been using our people as surety. And so what has happened is they've been claiming to be first blood Americans when actually they're hybrids. and they're offspring of the concubines that is represented in the Bible as the amalgamated ones. You know, we're it, the parables talked about in this nature. And God says to the children of Israel, it says, look what you have wrought, the amalgamation. Talks about amalgamation. Said, no, you go in the house. We'll deal with this later. I'll take care of this right now. You get in the house. And we're going to deal with this later. This is really talking about the corruption of blood.
Would that be Patagonia?
Yes.
Because someone did ask about that.
Yes.
About the,
yes. And also in the Bible, where it talks about Patmos.
The Isle of Patmos.
The Isle of Patmos off Turkey. Now we're talking actual location, geographical location. And then we're talking about one of the first stopping points of the hybrids that was taken to Patagonia and then taken to the land of Angles and given under the authority of the Berber queen, Europa, which is actually a Berber queen. And so the hybrids were given the name European that actually belonged to us. Okay. But that's the Berber queen.
Modern Europeans.
That's why they're called modern man.
Yeah.
And this is, modern and to Brits. Make it more distinguished, this is why when people who do any lightweight research, they don't even have to do heavy research, go into European culture and heraldry, all of your shields of heraldry in Europe prior to the 1800s, they're all Moors. And people see it, but they don't know the history because they always relate Europe to the Paleolith Europeans, because the Moorish history has been covered up. Now, so in the celebration of the genociding of the Moors of Europe and of Europa's children, i.e. of the Moors in Europe, which are really, you're really dealing with Phoenicians, because that's really all of us, Phoenicians and Chaldeans and Naga, etc. You will see the celebration that they call Tag Day among Africans. They call it Tag Day among Africans, and among Europeans they call it St. Patrick's Day. And the running the snakes out of Ireland. We are the people of the snake. You get the point? Of Kundalini is not a serpent, the devil, in the concept that you've been told, because the snake is you in Berber culture. It actually is. And this is back to, truths that our people need to know about the culture, that they have been taught to hate as a negative and subtly being taught to hate themselves. And the so-called black scholars won't tell them the truth because most of them claim to be Constantinians disguised as Christians, and they've been compromised. And rather than tell the truth, they promote the anthropomorphic lie, knowing that they're lying. Now, of course, when you start telling the truth, it upsets the apple cart of all these institutions. Upsets the apple cart of all these institutions. And but it needs to be known, and particularly now, that the Asiatic nations of the world of Midgard are reducing heavily their trade into the pristine and the treasury bonds of the United States Corporation Company of the Jesuit Order, belonging to the popes of Rome under their secret treaty of Verona, etc. operations, which actually funds the United States Corporation Company that has been falsely promoted as the country since 1861. And this is, again, the problem that we're having with our people politically and economically nowadays, because they thought the United States was a country.
Well, I'm just going to go for a question. It seems like Negus Heirs to the Land TV has a lot to say.
Yeah,
they've been putting up a lot of stuff. So, sometimes people want to be distracted, but fine, we appreciate that. But so he or she, I'm not sure, is asking about Moors in America prior to 1400 because they seem to keep saying,
it's prior because we're the same people. Because we're talking about time period.
He seems to be rejecting anything that you say
No,
with regard to Europe or
that's fine.
Rome. Well, you agree with that Rome was America, and so forth. But which is you agree with that. But nothing from Europe or Africa. You can't discount it if it's true. Because we're talking about truth.
That's the whole point.
We were here, but we were other places also.
We were all over the planet.
Right.
Now, and this is for the people, those of you who may be listening, who may be confused about some scholarship of some persons. Do some research into European history and European culture, and then start doing some linguistic comparisons and etymological studies into your verbal linguistic group. And you'll find that much of the culture that you see in Europe, or many of the celebrations, are actually modified African ritual cultures, celebrations, etc. And 90% of it is based in cosmological relationship of ancient Nubia, ancient Sudan, ancient Eritrea, and that's a fact. For many of you, go do a little research into the scholar, one of the scholars, David McRitchie, Ancient and Modern Britons, etc., which is documented chronology and pedigree bloodlines of Europe, and also do research into the shields of heraldry of Europe prior to the hybrid Europeans, and you'll see that they're all Moors, Canaanites, Phoenicians, etc., and it's not hidden. You deal with all of your Pacific islands like the Philippines, etc. You deal with Central Asia, Cambodia, Vietnam, etc., Hong Kong, etc., and you'll find their Moors and their terminologies that they've been imposed upon them in these last century or so are not really related to their real bloodline, and most of them will tell you the history.
Weren't they normally named by conquerors named after conquerors?
Yes, but that's a fact.
Right.
But that's not even hard to research, meaning that the average person can start asking the people themselves.
Yeah, just like the sister that we posted.
More. Many of them starting to speak out because many of the Moors here have been brave enough to start telling the truth about the history and being consistent in doing so, and not backing off from the foundation that Noble Drew Ali set to restore the estate.
Right.
And showing the people documented history, records, treaties, interchanges, communications between the Moroccan Empire, Queen of England, etc., the Crown, etc., even George Washington's records, etc., in the Library of Congress. A lot of this stuff is available to anyone. It's just that it's not taught in your John D. Rockefeller Foundation. And then you'll see a lot of Moors, because of sellout benefits, agreed to be Indians, and so you'll see them putting a lot of emphasis on that. When actually that's false, etc. And that's another way that the hybrid Europeans use to claim jurisdiction, getting them, some of the Moors to agree to be Indians. Then they come under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Now they control their estates, but they thought they were going to get some sovereignty.
Right. How about even more recent with all of these casinos?
They gave
it to them, and then they taxed them to the hilt till they lose.
But let's explain what's really happening.
Yeah, please.
Now, it's not that we are not Naga, and it's not that we're not Dravidian, because we are Dravids too.
Okay.
Now you're talking Sindh.
Right.
And Sindh, or the Sindh River. So you're talking about Moors that came from like Central Africa, from Nubia, Sudan, etc., and moved up into Central Asia. And Sinde is misrepresented today as India. That's a linguistic modification of Sinde. And of course, Hindustani. This is why, like, for instance, like if you talk to many brothers and sisters of the Dravids, etc., so you would call
Dravidians. But you never think, I never thought that in terms of them being Moors, you know, because that's not the depiction that the ancient Dravidians.
That's why
you see these pictures, which now we know they go in and they make their own pictures.
Yeah, you can look in, you can look in, like, as an example, in Oxford dictionaries.
Right.
Pardon me, or any of your quality dictionaries, and they'll reference Indians as Mohammedans. You see?
Okay.
But what they're talking about, that's another way of saying Moors.
Okay.
But they'll imply the philosophy. So Muhammad is adopted philosophy.
Right.
Of a man that they present as a prophet.
Oh, but they are. There they are. They are.
Yeah. So you can see.
Yeah, ancient, Dravidians. But that, you know, I've seen.
But that's us, and so they'll say.
I don't know if you could. I don't think.
And so, and rather than tell the real history, they'll use the brand terms. They'll say Black Indians and terms like that, which is totally false. If you get the point. But we know what they're intending to imply.
Right.
But the deal of it is to avoid admitting that they're Moors. You get the point? Because remember, they have been trained to hate themselves.
Absolutely.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I was looking for a book that said the first Americans were.
But they already know. They already know.
We know that. We know.
And just like, for instance, you can look up Jolie Rogers, who is one of the most awarded scholars in your modern world, and he'll have in his book "Nature Knows No Color Line" as an example, and they'll say the Negro as Moor, and they're giving you European history. But very often, what you'll see the scholars do,
well, they came before
they'll
Columbus,
act,
right here,
yes, they'll act as if Moors went into Europe as opposed to Moors being the original Europeans.
Yeah.
See.
And think of it like this. And I want to say it sounds better when you think about us as we were Europeans.
Europa, because Europa was a Berber queen.
Right.
And Berber is African.
Right.
It's, but again, you'll see many of the hybrid Europeans will celebrate it. But the Asiatics here who want to be Black,
right,
will reject it.
They want Black Lives to Matter.
Because they don't, Black's an adjective. They want to use it as an identity because they were promised a benefit from Romans.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Just like you will see, and it's not even a secret. Even if you look at contemporary chronology and sociology at North America, you'll see constant debate of them using the admitted term, has nothing to do with pedigree or consanguinity. Term Black,
right?
Term African American, terms that were created contemporary to cover up Moorish history. It's never been a secret.
You know what could happen? You know how somebody said you give a good bucket of milk and then you kick it over. I see that when I see one of these unconscious melanated folks, or either they're just compromised, who will say something that's deep and very very much something that you might want to hear, but they color it with black because Black people, in it. Right, with Black people, listen, because what, I'm not going to talk about Candace Owens, but she's one of those people that does something like that.
Yeah,
and although her observation of things is very acute, deep, but she, I was like, she knows, doesn't she know she's not Black, and we not Black? They do know that.
They do. See, this is the deal. Let's deal with children, because many adults have egos.
Okay.
And because they have political agendas, they will do what they like to favorite call ebonics rather than etymology, which is the discipline, right? Linguistic discipline. Black is a Middle English word, derived from Old High German, which means white spot and pale colors. That's what it means. They will tell you that black means melanin.
Somebody just said black means slave.
Well, now that would be connotative. See, connotative. See, so people need to understand, and this is an example for those who may get caught up in the controversy of people debating truths to support, accepted connotative beliefs. Is distinction between scholarship and belief systems. Scholarship uses disciplines and documented facts. Belief systems more or less appeal to people's emotions or to their social, political, and economic agendas. Like, say, for instance, if someone get paid with a 501c3 skull and bones agreement to agree that they're black, they will deny that they're Moors, as an example. However, for those who may be a little confused, let's go to third grade grammatication for children. Since many people claim to be adults and claim to be scholars, claim to be standing on solid ground, well, look up the word black. And remember, the first thing you do when you look up a word in the dictionary, etymologically, you look at the classification or the part of speech that would come right after the word, and it will be in italics. And you'll see that black has right after it adjective, not noun, not proper noun, adjective, which means it modifies nouns. It modifies, it describes, it does not identify. And you'll see people dig up a lot of Asiatic African culture and then turn around and tell the people that black is an African pedigree, a consanguine pedigree. And nothing could be further than the truth. And it is absolutely deceptive, and it absolutely disgraceful, and absolutely cuts them off from the culture and the history. But another scholar knows that such scholars are compromised. Although they don't often attack them or necessarily expose them, it is a well-known fact that they're compromised, etc. It's sort of like people trying to sound intelligent and want to bring up a conversation on whether George Washington, the 9th president, had an iPhone or a Samsung, and what kind of, whether it was Android type thing, and want to have a serious conversation. And a person who doesn't understand that, who doesn't know better, can get caught up in the argument when there is no argument, because even though the technology existed far before them, the fact of the matter is that they did not have that technology.
Right. They didn't have
If you get the point.
Everything they have, they stole.
Yes.
Everything they have. It's funny. One person I gotta go back and find it. But in the meantime, I see Ariel, Israel, and I actually saw this today, that they had changed the street close to the White House in DC territory to Black Lives Matter Avenue. I mean, to me, this is overkill with all of this so-called conciliatory acts that we're seeing during this time, and people don't realize that they're being placated and they're being played. Like I said, being played, and it's mainly to garner votes, because we have the misconception that we identify the Democratic Party with us, with us, and I wouldn't even. The
Democratic Party is
please tell people that these people
but have been. Know that.
Yeah, but they don't realize.
Yeah, but scholars know that.
But see, all they see is Donald Trump, who I didn't vote for, and I don't. I think he does some stupid stuff.
None of them.
But I know. But
they're arguing over your estate.
Right.
Both of them. However, the good cop, bad cop paradigm that they're playing on the people, dog and pony show. Donald Trump is the good cop. That's
really, and that's the point.
But the real deal of it is
he's the best of the worst.
Yes.
And people don't realize it, and they're trying. And all you need to do is turn on the mainstream media, which is definitely deep state, democratically controlled, because all they do is spend all their time talking about him. There's other things going on.
What they're doing, they're distracting, because, and this is back to people needing to know the history. Donald Trump is a Knights Templar. I suggest you all do the research on the Knights Templar and the problems that they've had with the popes of Rome and the clashes that have come between them, and not confuse their personal fights with you. When they have these Asiatic Africans voting, they're actually using their vote not in the political platform of the corporation because their vote don't count that way. They're used as a what you call a sanction into the birth certificate bottomry instrument bond that was set up by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in House Joint Resolution 192 in 1933 to back the United States corporation debt because the world would no longer accept the marriage certificates and the instrumentality that was used against the estates since 1913 with Woodrow Wilson. And so the people don't know that that's what the vote is for. The vote is for movements into the trust. It has nothing to do with these people serving these people. It's for them serving themselves and using your signature or autograph as a sanctioning for them to create more surety instruments against the bonds. And that's the bondage that they've been told was a chain that ended in 65. No, it is not. It is the bond system that's on the stock market, and the people are the stock. Now, that's just the truth. It's uncomfortable truth, but the people need to wake up and know that they're being played, and they're being played.
Right. Really, really.
Yeah. Including the census. With the census, they need more stock because the world stopped buying the United States corporation treasury bonds. And this is why you have actually the credit market or the credit window of the world trade froze up. That's why the Ku Klux Klan crashed,
i.e. the Democratic Party.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why a lot of these businesses are not going to be able to, can't open up because they can't.
Most of the mom and pop stores will not survive this attack.
But some of the major ones, a lot of them are shutting down because the supply chain is broken. They can't get anything. Who wants the fiat?
Yeah, but this is the deal. People need to understand that the fiat is not just a private commercial paper. It is the instrumentality behind it, the bonds behind it, the trade windows. See, as an example, when we do our everyday business assigning debt notes, the people aren't told that they're assigning debt notes. They're told that they have money.
Right.
But they don't.
Right.
Now, so they're assigning debt notes and they're not charged as what you'll call traders because they're not doing big volume, but they're influenced to do it. And then the fake bays, calling themselves governors. And the leaders of the municipalities and the mayors, you understand, bundle the activities of the people in their districts together, and then they issue bonds on it. And that's how they build these big buildings. And do their projects. When
I was in office, but when I was the director of housing for this municipality, of course, every 4 years the city would go to the bond market, and for major projects, and we had to, fill out when we were doing the budget how many millions do you need and for what? Because they go to the bond market and float these bonds.
Float them bonds. Yes.
Right.
In other words, what is a floated bond? A floated bond is a promise to pay on a projected debt with interest on an instrument that already is debt laden. And this is why the bond system continues to accelerate and expand because it can't be paid off. Because it's a debt note from the beginning. Now, problem. The masses are never told this. They're never told this. All right. Now, what has happened is that the Jesuits have been robbing other countries with this by trading the treasury bonds. When they stopped buying them, because they were mostly influenced, that's why the United States Corporation has over military bases in over 189 countries. That's to enforce unum sanctum.
What the people have to realize, though, is that I call it a triangulation. So you've got the Vatican as the so-called ecclesiastical head of this triangle. You've got Washington D.C. District of Columbia as the military arm, and you got District of London, and the Circle Church,
Westminster,
and you got London as the financial
district.
So whatever they're doing, what you think it's just dealing with the U.S. is really a global strangulation of stranglehold.
Let's put things in perspective so that people can comprehend what we're talking about. The Trinity operations of the dark side of magic of Babylon, which is our culture, right? Because we're all Africans are technically Babylonians, Phoenicians, etc., Canaanites, Moabites. The hybrid European uses all Babylonian culture, but they use dark magic. That must be understood. So everything that they do is based in a destructive nature, but they study the rules of nature. Are we clear? They study the rules of nature, but they use the dark arts. They never use the positive art. And so our people, this is why, like, for instance, when you see terms talking about Babylon, the Great, etc., it's fallen, things like that. People look at Babylon in a totally negative, not understanding that there's aspects that they're talking about is the dark magic. You know, and it's sort of like we have a tendency when we look at things the way it's presented from the hybrid Europeans, we condemn all of our culture for all that is African, because you can see that most Africans hate themselves. That's why they want to be black rather than admit that they're Africans, right? Or that they admit that they're Moabite, Canaanite. You know, they'll say, well, we're black. You know, now factually that can be proven to be false. Factually, it can be proven that they're Canaanite, Moabite, but they will defend the black tag because they're seeking a benefit from Rome. But no one's supposed to admit that that's what their agenda is. Now, so what they move on the emotions of our people who really don't know scholarship or history or sociology to push their agenda. However, let's go back to the point. What's happening is that you have what they call a feedback loop that's been happening. And that is where the world trade windows, so you have what you call financial windows, and you have trade windows. The trade windows is where you would have platforms, and one of the platforms they call SWIFT. And this is where if a nation, because they have been doing this, trade with they would like to call the Western world. So when they say the Western world, that is a misgiven term given to the Vatican, District, Westminster, District of London, Circle Church and Chancery, the Bar on Fleet Street, England, and then Washington, D.C., the Trinity operations of the Unum Sanctum of the Jesuit order. So the world knows that when you're talking about the United States, you're talking about the Queen's colony. De facto operating at North America. To the people who don't know, they think, you know, the people who've been trained, to them it's a country. Because they were told. But that is fiat.
The currency.
That's fiat. No.
The whole system is fiat.
Exactly.
Which is why the Pope came here and was it 20?
Why he's honored.
But why he wrote
checking on his tributary.
And then he rode around in a fiat.
Yes. He's checking on his tributary.
Source.
So the masses don't know that the United. Let's look at this as an example for those of you who may not know where we're going with this little part of what we're talking about. Go read the Organic Act of Congress 1871, and that'll give you a little bit of insight. Now, however, so where the scholars and the politicians and Masons and Illuminati, Skull and Bones, Knights Templar, Ku Klux Klan, and all your priesthood know and always knew that the United States is a country, is a corporation, private, registered in Austria, operating at North America. The masses who have been trained by John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates institutions of mind control have been trained from childhood that it is, quote unquote, the country,
right,
sometimes called America.
right,
They don't even know America's a continent because they have the mentality of children.
right.
You know,
never been taught.
They don't even know basic third grade geography, but they got hard opinions. And this is how we got to where we are too. So you're looking at this.
Right.
So now the trade windows froze up. And this is really what's been going on. The coronavirus, as an example, is a cover-up for both military operations, suppression of indictments, suppression of military trials in secret that have been going on, distinguished from civil trials in civil courts, federal, state, etc., which are not operative for misprision, which is really what's going on. So this
Explain what misprision is.
Misprision are activities taken by a group of people or single people, etc. They might call them individuals or groups of people to subvert, undermine, disrupt, or commit treason against the sovereign. That's fact. One of the things that is going on for people to understand these attacks on Trump, so I'm not defending Trump, so don't get that twisted either, is to cover this up and to, let's say, cover up what's been going on quite a while, which is a civil war among them, the hybrid Europeans, over our estate, as their United States corporation company went bankrupt again in 2013, and Trump was assigned to deal with this matter in relationship to the rest of the world that stopped trading with them, which is what the crash is really about. Now, to cover this up and to also to try to get back in power, the Ku Klux Klan attacked the people openly rather than subtly. Although they still veil it, it's an open attack on the people. And you'll notice that they'll say China did this to us and the Russians did this to us. No. Ku Klux Klan and Knights Templars, these people who you've been thinking falsely is your government, have attacked the people openly under the guise of trying to help you, and then distracting the people with Russia and China arguments. And that's a fact. And now the fact of it is that's called misprision. That is misprision, in fact. Another distraction, as the people started waking up and somewhat not really rebelling, the people, the Klan operatives and the Bar Association turned these people onto themselves to distract you from rebelling against them. So now you have people killing each other in the street in the name of frustration, rather than the perpetrators of all of this, which is actually your politicians and your priesthood, etc. However, cutting through the chase and getting back to point, the feedback loop is covered up with the phrase quantitative easing, etc. And what that really means is that all the bond systems that they have out there that they've been selling people, including your so-called gold certificates and your Forex with your paper gold. When they say paper gold, you didn't have any physical gold in your hand. You bought certificates that represent so-called gold. All of that has crashed. And so what has been happening is that they've been accelerating printing. Like, for instance, they give you, as an example, say if you bought a stock in, as an example, say a business like some of these businesses that are closing now, that they'll call blah, 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 coin company, or that company, or that company, or this company, or that company that you see closing.
Yeah.
They trade with bonds. Our people deal with the Federal Reserve notes from their pocket, and they thought that that's how the world works. The world does not work on that.
That's just for us.
The work that's just for the people, to train them, to make them think they have money. They have private, and write this down, you all, private commercial paper coming under the category of fiat. That must be understood. It itself is termed as fiat, but that's not so much the fiat as it is the collective platforms that were created to justify its issuance and trade as, quote unquote, and that's a big as, money, if you get the point. Not money, as money.
Yep.
And so the deal of it is, when you see the gold or the silver coin, and you handle that because those are proofs. That's the money. And as an example, for those of you who are looking, that is the money.
Yeah.
This is money.
Yeah.
All of the other stuff they told you is money, including certificates. The redeemable certificates are not money.
And guess what?
The activity of trade with these.
With the Kikuyu tribe in Africa, in Africa, this was money.
Yes.
This was money.
Mm-hmm.
Had it since '91. But it's metal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a metal. So
it's substance.
For them, it was what they used to trade.
Mm-hmm. It's substance.
Yeah. It's not on
now,
paper or some kind of Bitcoin and electronic.
And people need to understand that the world trade is on credits. And the credit window, see, the Jesuits controlled the financial window with the fiat bottomry instruments, treasury bonds that they set up since 1868 when they closed the Freedmen's Bureau, and the private commercial paper debt notes of the Jesuits via the Federal Reserve systems of Skull and Bones, etc., under Unum Sanctum operations that they constructed at Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia during the Woodrow Wilson administration, etc. And so the operations and the platform upon which that operates is fiat, not just the instrument. That must be understood. So now you have what are called a feedback loop, and it's crashed within itself. So all this confusion is created to distract the people from what's really going on, because at this time they've been stealing people's accounts that the people have in banks. They've been stealing the people's retirement funds. The 1,200 notes that they've been sending people is actually stolen from people's retirement funds and also from Social Security. And this is also why the masses of those so-called instruments have not been delivered, because the fact of the matter is they ran out of what you call liquidity. And that's a fact. And so the credit windows are frozen up. That's what's going on. And so not logically, they're not going to tell you the truth about that. Why? Because the politicians are guilty of robbing you. And Russians didn't do it, and the Chinese didn't do it. Matter of fact, the problems that they're having with China is that China has actually been under occupation. As a matter of fact, I suggest that many of you do a little research with actually T&E people and Manchurians, and they will tell you that they are now in the process of setting up a new federation for China, distinguished from the Rockefeller operatives that had actually hijacked China and been doing all this stuff. And this is back to them pretending to be somebody that they're not and stealing people's estates. And our people need to know that this is what's been going on this planet. And what's been taking place elsewhere already took place with us here, but most people don't know the real politics, and they're pretty much asleep to it. And they're thinking that a lot of this information is just circumstantial opinion at current events, when actually they've been asleep to the fact that their estate has been stolen. With the census, they need new bonds, because the world essentially won't buy any more U.S. Treasury bonds And this is another reason why they've been sending out the census. And if you notice that they send the census out, but it will be in all capital letters. So that means they're really establishing new dead estates and declaring you minors or incompetent wards in order to create more bonds. Problem that they're having that the world is on to it and they're not accepting it.
Actually, most of them say resident. They don't even have a.
Well, that's why they say resident.
They say resident.
Because it is not what you think it is. You know, and I suggested you all go into your Bouvier's Law Dictionary and into your Henry Campbell Black's Law Dictionary of Ancient and Modern Jurisprudence, start looking at what these words really mean and why they call you that. But anyway, they run out of bonds to trade with the world. And so they're trying to create new bonds because the world will not accept any more movement on the birth certificates and the marriage certificates, which is what they've been operating on for the last 100 years, since 1913 area, etc. Oh, yes. Yes, the stocks have been going up. And again, that's isn't it interesting how the stocks are going up, yet the economy of the people is collapsing? What does it show you? What does that actually prove? It proves that they have no relationship, and the people have been told that they do. Now it is showing that's the proof that there's no relationship.
Look at this. That person said, I used. That's not where you do it.
Can, but guess what? They're creating a bond on it.
Yeah. If you use the
it's not a benefit. See, because basically all Moors are supposed to be dealing with the United States corporation company operatives through treaty alone. That's why Drew Ali say enforce the Constitution, because the venue for you to have right to your estate, you cannot be a member of an occupied force. In other words, see, the United States corporation company operatives are occupying North America. They are not North America. I think it's difficult because of the training for people to get it clear in their head.
Mm-hmm.
That the United States is not North America. The United States is a private corporation of operatives occupying North America.
Right.
You know, it's sort of like they've been in our house so long that our people think they are the people of the house. No, that's why people keep calling them Americans. Look what America did to the black man. That is one of the most dead statements that one can ever make. On the surface, it appears legitimate. But you know, they just did give up the birthright. And they sanctioned occupation. Interesting. You know, again, and this is why so much emphasis is put on some of these things, because once you start examining them, you will see for yourself. And we always suggest to people, don't accept what we say. We're giving you a point of thought, but when we present thoughts to you, they're done on research and they're done on jurisprudence facts. Everybody, you know, including us, everybody has opinions on things, yes. But what we choose to do is do research on facts and share with you facts that dispel or expose myths, real myths. We're not talking about the fable myths, you know, the way they hide truths. We're talking about misgivings, actually misgivings. The same way that people don't know what money is, they don't know the distinction between currency, credit, and money. They're trained, with all due respect, to think that they're all the same thing. And this is, again, why it's difficult to fix the problems of people, because they don't know what money is, but they think they do because their so-called education told them that they know what it is. And so we have to correct a lot of these social engineering problems that have been imposed on our people so that we can get ourselves properly placed in our proper due status. And because one of the other things that the operatives of the United States Corporation Company have done is by misclassifying the Aboriginal people, i.e. the Moors, as Negro, Blacks, and Indians. They actually change our status and then avoid their obligation to treaty and constitutional enforcement, and then declare the people as incompetent minorities and wards of the state. And under that guise, lawfully, legally, they don't have to account for the profits. And this is really how they've been running their state. That's the truth. That is the truth. That's how things have been run.
Gracie, do you foresee any major changes with regard to, say, the IRS, whether or not that system is going to continue, or any other collapse in some of the things that people, like taxing?
This is what must be looked at. The IRS and the Federal Reserve are one and the same. When one goes, the other goes.
So the Federal Reserve is
the Jesuits, and is the tribute, the
tithe.
the tithing to the Queen of England and to the Popes of Rome in the bishopric order.
Now, you talked about this several months ago. What was the name? The Dark Crystal. The Dark Crystal. I want to recommend this to anybody because you said you had the original.
Yeah.
But Netflix, maybe about 6-8 months ago or something, did a remake of the Dark Crystal, and it was with the Muppets. And I don't know the first
Jim
one.
Henson.
Jim Henson, his Muppets. And in the setup or the hierarchy of the Dark Crystal, you had the Skeksis and you had the Gelfins.
Yeah.
And you had the Skeksis.
Caste system.
Right.
Yeah.
You had the caste system, but it seems like the Skeksis, who were I call them the few. They were in control, but there weren't as many as the Gelfins were. But the Gelfins, right? But the Gelfins were a lot of different, I want to call them ethnic groups.
Sort of like the naive citizens.
Well, they had a Gelfin queen who received, say, the tribute from the rest of them, and then sent it up to the Skeksis, who controlled the whole darn thing. And it was more of the Gelfins than it was the Skeksis. And then they had that Dark Crystal, and they were taking energy from the people, or loosh from the people, the essence. And then they got greedy and said, no, we're taking it in too small amount. We need to just get it all. And then it wasn't until the people or the Gelfins came together, and I might be calling them the wrong name, but Skeksis is right. When they came together, they united, and they realized that they were, and they were people of of earth nature, and so they were. When they came, they were stronger together, and they defeated them. And I use that as an example of, because people know, well, what now, what next? First of all, we have to look at them. Look at that Netflix Dark Crystal. I looked at all maybe 9-10 episodes in a day and a half. I had to look at all of it, and came to the conclusion that it's us versus them.
They're talking about you,
right? And so how us overcame them was because us had to get together, had to unite, had to put aside our petty differences.
Yes.
And see what it was, our commonality. And
now see, commonality, common law. So when you look in jurisprudence and common law is rooted in the ancient traditions and customs of your ancient forefathers from time immemorial. That's why it trumps legislative law. That's fact. Now, keep this in mind. And this is back in process of jurisprudence. A person not in their proper person can't use common law as a defense. That's why they say you can't use the Constitution. That's what they're saying. You can't use common law as a defense because you're not a party to it. And our people think that they're being denied constitutional rights. No, their status neutralized their position
as Negro Black color.
Yes, and this is the part of the issue of constitutional and treaty enforcement that is not taught to the people. And so they think, they get caught in my opinion, your opinion type thing, what we want to call ourselves, angle of argument to justify their positions. But people who really understand jurisprudence know that it's an issue of descendability and heritability.
Is that hereditament?
Yes.
Okay.
Your hereditaments. And this is why they refer to as the dead. This is why they do the capital letters. Like people keep talking about the man of straw, like in the Wizard of Oz, and then talk about the man of straw, which is the all capital letters. But That's exactly what it means. It means the corpse. That means the people are dead.
Mm.
And so they're declared wards of the state, and therefore that the owners of the United States corporation companies and their subordinate franchisees, and these are your states of, distinguished, state of Pennsylvania, not Pennsylvania Commonwealth.
Okay.
State of Pennsylvania, state of Delaware, not Delaware State Republic. People who don't know better think that they're the same entity.
And they're not.
They're not. They're not. And then people who are compromised within the paradigm will attack this information and will deny that because they're a part of it or they've been benefiting from it. You get the point?
Mm-hmm.
However, our conditions is the message. In other words, what is the real condition of these people, politically and economically? Self-evident, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But when they start talking about their beliefs, you think that they're high on a mountain of beauty, with the sun shining on them, with the glory of God, and the blessings that they can't even pocket. There's so many of them. But yet the real condition is exactly the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah.
But no one's supposed to say that, are they?
Nope.
Yeah. Here we are. So the truth is, we've been hypocritical, right? We've been selling ourselves out. We don't know government. We don't know consanguinity. We don't know what the term corruption of blood means. We don't know that that's operative in the political forum right now. And many of the people don't want to hear it, but they want the benefit of inheritance, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
But they don't want to honor their mothers and fathers, i.e. they deny their nationality. Now you understand why the world governments did the rights of indigenous people, with the people having the right to declare their nationality, because they already know that's the root of the problem. The people have been misclassified, they've been abused, and they're held as surety. That's the bondage. They're held as surety.
In other words, we are the guarantor.
We are the guarantor, ignorantly,
yeah,
but consenting to it. By agreeing to be Negro, Black, and colored. Now you understand this is when the proof of the matter is from a law standard, right? Right? And this is for those who want to play that Indian game. Then the European got them under the Bureau of Indian Affairs because they thought they were special because they don't want to be Moors. You know, we're people of color, Indians, right? So now what did they let them build up all those casinos and all them businesses.
Taxing.
Hold on. And then cribbed all of them. How did they do that? Because there's no such thing. It is a term, not a pedigree. But they were promised sovereignty, weren't they? And they agreed to be Indians, didn't they? Now, when you do the research, it's documented. It is documented that they did that to Moors, that they call us Negroes and Indians. That's documented. That's not an opinion. That's documented. You know, and then you have these people who deny that they're Moors and say that they're Indians because they thought they were going to get some cookies. Well, they got tricked. And here we go. So the deal of it is we're not really appealing to people who we know are compromised, and we know that they know that we know that they're compromised. And they're going to argue, but I'm not looking at them, nor am I trying to convince them. I'm trying to wake up people who have been innocently deceived, you know, on innocence on their part, by people who have known these things and don't go there. They tell them things they want to hear. They sit around, they talk about the color of your skin, race and prejudice to divert, and the people don't know those are designed diversionary arguments. The issue is, and always has been, heritability, descendability, and above that, decolonization. And you go outside of that in your quest, don't expect to solve any of these social, economic, or political problems, or these sacrificial murders on the street by the gangs of New York in contract with the United States corporation company operatives, hiding under the guise of law officers, which they are not. They are commercial mercenaries. Now that's the fact. It's not opinion, documented fact. And for those who may be confused about that, go look at all Supreme Court cases in relationship to persons who belong to the private, for-profit religious order known as the Fraternal Order of Police with 3 degrees of Masonry, etc. Their business is to protect the United States corporation companies and not the people. And their operations have been to keep the people destabilized. And they have been sanctioned by the de facto operatives of the congressmen and senators and the members of the Supreme Court, Skull and Bones, etc., to do ritual murders on the street with impunity. This is why they've been murdering heirs to the estate on the street, and there's been no consequence. And when they do something, they will placate the people and call it manslaughter or something like that, or 3rd and 2nd degree homicide type thing, knowing again that these are what you'll call aggravated, hostile murders, ritual murders, etc. Because every time they drop a body, that the United States Service Corporation, municipal districts got double indemnity insurance policies on everyone through their birth certificates, so they get paid. And that's not the family. And that's when they assassinate our people on the street, they actually get paid. And these commercial mercenaries that our people been falsely calling police officers, they are not officers. They were not elected by the people. They work for the private corporation companies only. And their general job is to keep our communities disorderly, disheveled, and pretend that they're defending or protecting the people when actually they're there to systematically, whenever certain politicians call for it, to target certain people and say that they're the toothpick they had in their mouth, they thought it was a gun, and so they defended themselves and shot them. And they do it every day, over and 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 over again. Your discussion should be about decolonization, not racism and prejudice. The truth is what it is, and it needs no apology. Can you share with us, from your first book, your poetry book, share with us a couple of your poems, and then later on, share with us from your book that's yet to be published. Because right. I had the privilege of reading some of your later work that some of the people didn't hear. Some people heard, some people don't know about it. Well, but anyway, share with us.
Yeah. Well, this one, I'll share this one because this one, I think it's most apropos to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And many of you have heard this, and maybe some of you haven't, because there's quite a few folks listening. But this one is from my book. You kind of see it. The book is back there, right behind me. Poetry is. I got it in my hand. Here.
Yes.
This is
Can you see it?
Poetry is the musings of an undercover writer. That's from that first book.
Yes.
And I'm going to do. It's called "Did I Mention?"
Yes, a good one.
It says, "Did I mention my ascension takes me out of your detention, or that my lower inhibitions have given way to precognition, or that I've opened up my eyes so that I see behind your lies, and it's not hard to recognize that you're the devil in disguise. You've worked hard for centuries enslaving minds of folks like me, and it's your fear of this exposure that keeps you delaying full disclosure. How do you sleep at night, knowing your deeds have never been right? And regardless of your 1,000-year plan, soon you won't have a leg on which to stand. See, all around you, the indigenous are waking, and our birthright back we're taking. Yes, you really should be shaking. Can't you feel your matrix breaking? Excuse me, but did I mention this is not about dissension? Please don't try to make this something that is not. The time for righting what's been wrong, it's getting closer, won't be long before my inheritance you stole, karma will make you restore. And oh, yes, did I mention I am more?
All right. And also, Sarah, since you got them in the poet mood,
Okay.
we share with us your one of the unpublished poems when you recent
The one that's
Yes.
going to be in the thoughts.
in the coming book.
When we gonna be?
Yeah, when we're gonna be. When we're gonna be.
All right, y'all. Thank you. But okay, this is called "When We Gonna Be." It's kind of long, but let me just share it. Trying to figure out. Let me go back. I don't even know what that is. I got some crazy stuff here. Let me delete this. All right, here we go. Discard the changes. I just hit something. Here we go. When we gonna be? Trying to figure out who we really want to be, but still fighting and settling for a false identity that distorts and conceals our true nationality while trading places with the real enemy. Wake up, get up. When we really gonna see? Do you know why there's no ground on which to stand? Because we're looking for redemption, unaware that we're on our land. They've got us focused on returning to one small patch of ground when throughout the universe can our presence be found. We're embracing his Tory while neglecting the glory of our ancient existence and deity. Truth is, living like thugs and paupers is the real tragedy. We protest and march blindly like lemmings off the edge, but can't find time to study for some real knowledge. Predictably programmed for social response and reaction, oblivious to the fact we're being strategically distracted by the coordinated efforts of so-called deep state factions.
Mm-hmm.
Will our ignorance help their plan to depopulate the land so robotic artificial intelligence becomes their newest slaves as we continually cry out to a fabricated mythos? What must I do to be saved? Or will we rise above their lies and reconnect with the Most High, who's not distant in the skies, but inside you, where true divinity resides? Time to call forth the divine spark of light that decided with determined and might to journey 9 months to a distant world to take up residence in a baby boy or girl. See, I'm not trying to raise a stink, but I am trying to get you to think on a more critical level. You must know who is the real devil and not be fooled by what you're shown. The jig is up, their cover's blown. This stuff ain't real. It's all a dream tied to an elaborate hocus pocus scheme to keep everyone ignorant and under subjection, and the world in chaos in need of correction. See, they've never played fair. They played straight down the middle, and right now most folks being played like a fiddle. So we must stop looking for help to come from a system that was designed to keep us trapped without wisdom. I know for a fact we are the answer we desire to see. So tell me, my people, when we gonna be?
All right. That's a goodie. Can't wait for this next one.
When we gonna be? When are we going to allow that, like I said, what was given to me, that divine spark of light that with determined and might journeyed, took a 9-month journey into a strange world to take up residence in a baby boy or girl? That's you, that's me. we came with a mission. We came here with a purpose. We
Yes.
came here. We had said, "Send me, I'll go." You know, we keep suiting up and jumping in. You know, I call mothers starships.
Yes.
And coming here to do something, but unfortunately, 9 months in amniotic fluid, I call that amnesia juice, and we forget.
Yeah.
And we think that we are, you know, the lowly. We think that we are under subjection, and we don't remember we came from divine origins.
Yes.
And we came on a mission, but we get, like what's going on now, distracted.
Yes, get distracted. And keep in mind, and also for those of you, let's scroll up. I want to share something. Scroll back.
Okay, scroll back up.
Go ahead on. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. We're looking at some of your comments, y'all. So that's what we're doing.
Because I want to share
We're trying to.
some important right there.
Okay. Okay.
Now, also I want to share with you all, particularly for those many of you who want to study your culture, etc. We also have, you know, some shared scholarship from anthropologists and scholarship, and I'll just share some of it with you. This is from Matiti Asha. The Bantu is also considered part of the Urdu Altaic language group, which demonstrates that the Bantu spoke Assyrian at one point. And there's an old book called The Origin of the Bantu available on Google Books, which goes into detail and shows that the Bantu were the Nagas in ancient India. And so this is, again, for you to do research and recognize that ancient India, you know, you're talking about Dravids or Dravidians, etc. And so you're talking about Sindh. And so for those of us who of the Asiatics who come from that area, this is another reason why of the Nagas here that they called us Indians, if you get the point. But that is sort of like a misnomer in a sense. Now, if you want to make that association, don't say you're American Indian, say that you're Naga. You see the point? Because as soon as you agree to be American Indian, then they can put you or classify you under the Bureau of Indian Affairs and then claim jurisdiction over you because they control that. This is what people need to understand. If you want to get back to your culture and you want to start making claims, go then just tell the truth. Say, I'm Naga. Now you're still back to Africa. There you go. That's just the truth. Get over it. Stop faking.
We have quite a few people on, and it's getting late because I know you're tired.
I've been up to 4 o'clock working yesterday, up to 4 to 4:30, and I really began to rest close to 5 o'clock. Then I was up at 6:20, waiting for Abdullah and them. Then of course came down here, and we've been working since early this morning up till now. So you all have to excuse me if I look sleepy, because I am.
And we appreciate you. We appreciate you, Grand Sheik. And we want to shout out to Sister Tamara L, Brother Abdullah, Brother Shem, Brother Terrence, Brother Ahmad, and of course, Grand Sheik for the yeoman's work that they are doing to get House of Reawakening Minds in order so that, you know, we can continue to do and build and do what it is we need to do in this and future times. I want to say, just as a shout out, I'm gonna toot my own horn a little bit. I'm gonna give on Tuesday nights. You know, I have a new podcast called Office Hours with Dr. G. It airs right here on the House of on this station, House of Reawakening Minds, at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I've had next week it will be my think my fourth show. And I'm no stranger to media. I used to host local cable TV here in Delaware, but I have had some exciting guests so far. But I am so looking forward to the next 2 weeks when I will have with me on Office Hours with Dr. G, Brother Dwayne Hendricks. And Brother Dwayne Hendricks is author of several books, but the two that stand out the most are Red Pill Alchemy and Supreme Science. So he is also the spokesperson for Wayne Williams, who is currently been incarcerated for about 40 years or so, or close to 40 years, with regard to the Atlanta child murders. And apparently the mayor of Atlanta had, after some push, they have reopened the case because it's very evident that he was, railroaded, and there were others involved, and that actually did this. So he is the spokesperson, and he's part of that team that is heading the call to have that case reopened. But he's also an awesome, when I say awesome, I'm saying it with a capital A, researcher. And he promised me last night, I was like on his show, I was listening on his live, and he pulled me in. I was sitting in the car in the rain, but he promises me that he's going to be dropping jewels. And so I, put a note on your calendar or your clock on your phone to check out Office Hours with Dr. G, which is on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, and try us out this week. I know you are going to be pleasantly surprised, and like I said, it'll be right here. You'll be able to ask questions, but I'm probably going to be doing a very little talking, because the brother is deep and deep.
Yeah, be prepared to take notes.
Yes. Whenever somebody, we have these classes, particularly with Grand Sheik, you should do that. But I know that there are many of you who have told me that you go to sleep and wake up looking at videos over and over, and some of them do write down, kind of word for word what you're saying. But I'm just inviting you to tune in, and that particular program also is in support of the House of Reawakening Minds. This is just another avenue. Also, Sister Tamara L. has State of the Nationals, which is broadcast on Blog Talk Radio on Thursday evenings at 9 p.m. So we're doing other things, and we just want you to know that we appreciate your support. We appreciate your love, and we're gonna have to get some music. I mean, my daughter Maisha, I've been butchering her song, trying to sing it, but she's the one that you hear the little tape running, and she would be singing it. And I think one of these days, Fridays, I'm just going to get her to come on and be on the show and have her sing what she wrote herself.
Yeah, we miss her and seen her
right. She's in the ATL, and she's an awesome person, a singer, songwriter, and an alchemist. Oh yeah, she's a bush woman. So thank you so much. Thank you, one and all. Let me just look to see if there's any.
And also, we want to thank all of you for sharing your time with us. Trust, even with our attempt to share so many things to talk about, and sometimes we get scattered because there's so many things to touch upon that affect our lives, and it's kind of difficult to battle and to counter a lot of things that the hybrid Romans have been able to do to our people for the last couple hundred years. And so, but the major thing that we tried to do is to do research to bring you fundamental truths and facts that many people dance around or try to avoid the controversy concerning them, because so many people are compromised around us. So many people you've trusted are actually compromised. And we're not condemning them. When we expose certain truths, we're just telling you the truth, because that's how we deal here at the House of Reawakening Minds. Hopefully to help people and to evolve the people to be themselves to know themselves. And one of the things that I'm putting out there for you to study and to get very, very clear on is this law phrase, corruption of blood, and find out how serious that is. And you'll understand why we keep emphasizing to you, stop calling yourself black. And it's not just an emotional statement. It's not just an etymological correction. It is absolutely dangerous to your health, spiritually, politically, and particularly by hereditaments, i.e. corporal and incorporal, your economics. And anyway, thanks for sharing your time with us. And we're grateful that you take the time to share with us. And we hope we've done some good, etc. Can't wait for her new book.
Well, though they're asking where they can where they can get this one.
Yeah.
And actually this is why, like, besides that one up there, it's like the only copy I have left. But if you want this book, if I get enough responses, hit me up on my Facebook page. If you are interested in purchasing the book, I will actually go and have some more reprinted.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to do some stuff through Sister Cynthia Martin L's Noble 7 Publishing instead of going the way I went before. But on a short term, if you want this, then please just indicate on my Facebook page and send me a messenger. Yeah, just do it on Messenger if you're interested in the book. The book is 15 notes, Federal Reserve notes, or you can send me a silver coin. No, 15 Federal Reserve notes, and that includes the shipping. All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. We about to leave.
Yes.
I wish I could. You know what?
I'm going there and throw some cold water on my face and wake up and go back to work.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let me see.
Peace. Have a grand evening.
Yeah, we're gonna shut out.